Hi everyone, it's Katie from Chords Records. I'm going to do an occasional series called Soundtrack Saturday, so you'll be watching this on a Saturday. And the reason I'm doing this is because one, I collect soundtracks. I particularly collect two different genres, one 80s films and the other is science fiction. And I recently acquired reissues from Japan of the original Star Wars films. I'll talk to you about them one by one in a minute, but a little bit of background about them. So they're reissued sort of occasionally by Walt Disney Records, who took over the rights from Sony Music in around about 2018. And when Walt Disney did that, they put together a team at Lucasfilm and remastered them. They actually went back to the original files and rebuilt the soundtracks from the ground up. And these are those masters, and it's actually true to the film score, not the later produced for record score, which is slightly different. And so this is very true to the original music. And absolutely beautiful. And they occasionally reissue them. I think they reissued them in Japan for Star Wars Day, I think maybe 2 or 3 years ago, as a collector set. And then this year, 2026, if you're watching this sometime in the future, they reissued them on just the 3 original films, which is A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi, on colored vinyl, and they sound fantastic, beautifully quiet. And reading some reviews online, people are saying it's up there with some of the best sounding versions of this soundtrack. So they're not super expensive, but they are limited. So I would, if you're really into soundtracks, and you're into Star Wars, I would grab these. Right, there's some really interesting kind of provenance or pedigree to these soundtracks. So when Lucasfilm put together, or Walt Disney put together, when they acquired Lucasfilm back in, whenever it was, in the teens, they put together a bunch of sound people, put together this team to work on these albums. And one of them was Leslie Ann Jones, who is still currently, from what I can gather, the director of music and scoring and recording engineer and mixer at Lucasfilm. She is an absolute legend of the industry. And so if you haven't heard about her, since the early 70s, she was one of the very first American female engineers. And there's still not that many globally in the ratio of sound engineers, but she was an absolute pioneer. And a fun fact about her, which I was thrilled to read, if you watch my video from a couple of weeks ago, she went on the road on the 1974 tour of Fanny, on the world tour of Fanny, I think she was like a sound mixer or road manager or something. And of course, I've just recently picked up this album, which now makes it 2 that I've got, which I'm so excited about. That was just a really fun fact. She's done lots. She's recorded everyone from Rosemary Clooney to the Kronos Quartet, but she was pivotal in the remastering team of these Star Wars albums, as was Sean Murphy. Now, Sean Murphy similarly has an amazing kind of lineage of Grammy nominations, Oscar nominations, and Sean Murphy was actually an Oscar nomination for sound, a nominee for sound of the Steven Spielberg remaking of West Side Story in 2021. And I have to say, and he was involved in the sound of the movie. The soundtrack was nominated for Grammys, but they were different people. This soundtrack, if you haven't listened to it, if you know West Side Story music, and if you haven't listened to this Steven Spielberg soundtrack, it is phenomenal. The rhythms and the drums, it's mastered so beautifully, or engineered so beautifully, I absolutely love this. I collect West Side Story albums. In fact, I've got about 8. I love that musical, and yes, I've got a lot of versions, but this one was a great one. So Sean Murphy was a nominee for the sound on that film, Oscar nominee, and he was one of the team members as well for the Star Trek remasters. So let's talk about this trio. So I left the plastic on. I'll take it off in a minute, but I wanted to show you what was on the actual plastic. So it comes like this. Sorry about my light. And there's this hype sticker, Star Wars blue color vinyl, and the Japanese, bits and pieces there. And then resealable plastic sleeve. And you can see there the Obi strip there. And this is a single sleeve version. It uses the original poster work from the Japanese release of all 3 films, but it's sort of it's beautifully produced, as you would expect from Japan. It's sort of this matte kind of finish. You can see kind of a dull sheen on there. It's absolutely beautiful. It came packaged beautifully, and each of the double albums is in this single sleeve, as I said, and then in turn in a poly-lined sleeve. And this beautiful sapphire blue, it's just absolutely a really beautiful color. Not that it really matters, does it? But it's just a little bit of fun, and it sounds just I can't stress enough how beautiful this sounds. Over the years, I've had different copies of it, and these are now the only copies of the original soundtracks I have. So that's Star Wars. The only thing about these, and I'm going to keep it, but the only thing about these is they do have that sticky on down there, which can be problematic if you put it on the wrong surface. Right, and so then we go to the second film, which is Empire Strikes Back, as we all know. Similarly has the hype sticker, and this one is the red color vinyl and the red Obi, which I'll just put back on. And this is the original Japanese cover. Again, beautiful quality cardboard. And I'll just show you one of the albums here. Beautiful translucent red. And then finally we have the Return of the Jedi, which is on green with the hype sticker. And every hype sticker, the color of the vinyl is in the same as the lightsabers there. So this has got the green Obi. Look at the beautiful Japanese posters for Return of the Jedi. I thought they're quite different from the Australian and the US versions. And then this one's a single album, and it's on this gorgeous emerald green. Look at that. That is one of the most beautiful greens I have in my collection. All right, so they're the 3 new so they were reissued in 2026, and they're the same masters that were used from that 2018 Building from the Ground Up remasters. There was a special kind of edition that was at the Star Wars Day, as I said, 2 or 3 years ago, and that actually came with some special bits and pieces, and they're quite collectible. But these are actually the same plates, the same masters. So really worth picking up if you're into good quality soundtracks. And the only other one I used to have quite a bit of Star Wars stuff, but many years ago I somehow parted ways with it. But the only one I still have is my original from when Star Wars was the first film I ever saw as a child, 1977. And the only remaining artifact I have from that time is my storybook, Return of the Jedi. So this was my original copy, which includes the 16-page full-color souvenir photo book, dialogue and music from the original motion picture soundtrack. And, you know, I kept all my records in really good condition. So it's in beautiful condition, and it came on this Vista Buena Vista, which was the original Walt Disney. Wasn't that funny? Buena Vista was the original Walt Disney, but Walt Disney didn't acquire Lucasfilm until. So that's quite telling. How fascinating. I might have got that wrong, but Buena Vista Records. Correct me in the comments if I'm going crazy there. All right, so there you have it. These beautiful 3 Japanese pressings of the remastered original Star Wars trilogy with Leslie Ann Jones, an absolute pioneer in sound engineering. In fact, Leslie Ann Jones, I think, was chairwoman, I should say, of the National Arts and Sciences, like the Grammys, for a while. Like, she's got such a story, like a really fantastic history. I think she was involved in Olivia Records for a little while, which was a great feminist label in the 70s, and has really, really supported women in the industry throughout her career. I think she's she's in her 70s herself now, but still at Lucasfilm. Anyway, there you go. My first Saturday soundtrack series. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.